The morning my HOA tried to tear down my fence, they did not come quietly. They rolled in with a backhoe rumbling behind my house, a guy in a neon vest calling himself County Code, and a stack of papers saying my backyard suddenly belonged to the community I was standing between. That machine and the fresh fence posts. When my 70-something neighbor stepped out from behind my shed, flipped open a badge, and calmly told our HOA president she was under arrest. Yeah, that really happened. And if it sounds wild to you, imagine being me in that moment. Sweat in my eyes, post-driver in my hands, thinking I was just putting up a simple fence on my dad's land. My name is Mark Lawson. I am a former Army mechanic who thought moving back into my dad's old place at the back of a Texas subdivision would be the quiet chapter of my life. Maple Hollow Reserve is one of those postcard neighborhoods. Stone entrance sign fountains in the ponds, walking trail pool, and an HOA handbook thick enough to use as a step stool. My house is older than the rest, tucked all the way at the back, and because my dad bought it before Maple Hollow existed, my yard runs a little deeper than everybody else's. There is this skinny strip of grass and scrub behind my fence line that does not look like much, but it is on my deed in black and white, and my dad treated that boundary like it was carved in stone. Growing up, he would stand back there with a beer and say, "Son, fences are not just about keeping the dog in. They are where respect begins and ends. This strip right here is where our land stops, and everybody else's business starts." As a kid, I rolled my eyes. But after he died and the house became mine, that little strip felt like the last thing that was clearly his. So when somebody showed up and told me it was never really mine, it hit me in a place I did not know was still raw. You know what I mean? I met our HOA president, Brenda Collins, at 6 in the morning about 3 weeks after the funeral. I was out back in an old t-shirt and boots, coffee in one hand, hammer in the other, checking corners for a new privacy fence. The sun was barely up the grass. Still cold on my feet when I heard the sharp click of heels coming down my side yard. Not flip-flops, not sneakers, heels. She came marching toward me like she already owned the property. Blonde bob, big sunglasses, HOA logo on her polo clipboard, hugged to her chest. "Good morning, Mr. Lawson." She said, "You can't put a fence there." I laughed. Said, "Pretty sure I can. This is my property line. My dad mowed this for 30 years. She gave me that tight HOA smile. Actually, that strip is Maple Hollow, common area you inherited. An easement, not extra yard. Any structure in the view corridor is an immediate violation." She flipped a page and slid a bright orange notice into my hand, like a parking ticket initial fine. $250. It doubles every week, you ignore it. She said it like she was announcing bingo numbers. I told her I had the deed. The survey, we could look at it together. She shrugged. "Deeds are complicated, dolls are simple around here. We follow the rules. Board meeting is next Thursday, if you want to discuss it." Then she checked her watch and walked off, heels clicking back up my side yard, while I stood in the dew with a violation notice for touching land. My dad paid tax on his whole life. That night, my kitchen table disappeared under my dad's paperwork. Old surveys, tax bills. The deed, my wife Sophia sat across from me in sweatpants and glasses. She is a real estate attorney, the boring kind. Until your life turns into a title fight. After a while, she tapped one survey and said, "You are not crazy. See this line? That is your rear boundary. The HOA plat stops here, and these are 30 years of property tax bills, with that strip included. As far as the county is concerned, Your dad owned it. I felt a wave of relief, like, okay, we will show them. They will realize they are wrong, we will all move on. So I went to the board meeting with a neat little folder under my arm, like a kid bringing homework. The clubhouse room smelled like chlorine and sugar cookies, residents in folding chairs. The board at a long table, Brenda in the middle, with a property manager from Horizon Property Group beside her. When they called my name, I laid out the deed and the survey and walked them through it. This strip is on my deed. My dad paid taxes on it. The county recognizes it as ours. Your map is wrong. Brenda did not even glance down. She looked at me, the way TSA looks at someone arguing about taking their shoes off. Mr. Lawson, with all due respect, if everything you are saying were true, it would have been fixed long before now. The board recognizes the current plat as binding the area behind your home. Is common open space. Your emotional attachment to your late father's yard does not change that. One guy in a golf shirt chuckled and said, "If you can't follow basic rules, maybe Maple Hollow is not the community for you." People shifted in their chairs, some stared. Some studied their shoes, and in about 30 seconds I went from homeowner with a question to problem. They wanted to push out. After that, the pressure became a steady drip violation letters, with zoomed-in photos of my backyard taken from the walking trail. Bold red phrases like ongoing violation and final notice. They cut off my pool and gym access cards. Flagged my account as delinquent. So when I called about a broken streetlight, the manager said, "We only process requests for residents in good standing." Mr. Lawson, the trash truck skipped my can 2 weeks in a row after the HOA emailed the waste company about my status, and every letter ended with the same line continued. Non-compliance may result in a lien being placed on your property. It is funny how fast a group of neighbors with clipboards turns into something that feels like a bank you never applied to. I tried to be reasonable. I called, I emailed, begged them to send someone from the county to walk the line. All I got back were canned responses and more attitude. Finally, one Saturday, I snapped rented an auger, bought lumber, and started digging post holes. Right on that survey line. It felt good. Simple. Honest work. Like I was finally doing something, instead of just reading threats. Then the show rolled in. Again, a Horizon pickup stopped at the curb. A guy in a safety vest stood there filming me on his phone. 10 minutes later, a silver sedan pulled up near the trail. A man in khakis and a reflective vest walked straight through my yard. Flashed a generic badge and said, "I'm with County Code. You're building inside a drainage easement. Any structure here is illegal. If you keep going, we can condemn the property." His badge did not look like the county ones online. His paperwork had no case number, just a logo and dense paragraphs. When I asked his department and supervisor, he raised his voice so the camera could hear. "You have been warned, sir. That is all you need to know." The next morning, the posts I had set were gone, not broken. Neatly stacked outside my gate, there was a note taped to my door, "Unauthorized materials removed." Per emergency authority, granted to Maple Hollow Reserve Homeowners Association. I stood there in my socks holding that note, and for the first time in a long time, I felt genuinely small. I had made it through roadside bombs overseas, but apparently I could not get a fence past Brenda and a guy with a printer. That changed when Sophia came back from the county office. She dropped a folder on the table and slid one page toward me. Rear Greenbelt easement agreement on one line. It said my dad's name on the next. It said Maple Hollow Reserve. HOA, the date was 3 days after the night he collapsed in that living room. The signature looked kind of like his, if you did not know better. But when we held it next to his will and mortgage papers, it was off. My father always made the L in Lawson. With a little hook, this one was straight and stiff. Sophia traced it with her pen and said quietly, "He did not sign this. Mark, somebody put his name on here. You know what that means." And it felt like somebody had knocked the air out of me all the nights he ranted about the board, all the times we told him it was just letters and meetings. Suddenly, I am staring at proof that after he died, someone used his name to give away the exact strip of land he fought them over. A couple evenings later, my neighbor Frank wandered over with a six-pack. Like it was any other night, Frank is one of those old-school guys who has been there since before the subdivision. Denim shirt, permanent squint, knows every dog by name. We sat on the back steps watching the sun drop over that little strip, and out of nowhere, he says, "Your old man never signed that paper." You know, I turned what paper he took, a long drink. That green belt thing, he showed it to me. Once said he'd rather die than let them take that line. Week later, he was gone. Then Frank went quiet and stared at the trees like he wished he had not started that story before. I could push. My phone rang unknown number. I almost ignored it, then I picked up. The voice on the other end was smooth professional for Lawson. "This is the Maple Hollow Residential Compliance Division. We coordinate with your association to protect community interests." I said, "Funny. Never heard of you. You with the county, the state. Who do you actually work for?" He slid past it. "Your father eventually cooperated. We expect the same from you. Sign the easement over, or the board will be forced to escalate." That word, escalate, came out sharp. My phone was on speaker. Sophia hit record on her laptop, so I leaned into it. "So let me get this straight. You forged my dad's name on a document, took my land on paper, and now you're threatening to take my house if I don't go along, little." Pause. Then his tone went cold. People who fight the process tend to regret it. And he hung up. Yeah, that happened. And that is the moment where the story stopped being about a fence and turned into something else. After that, we stopped pretending this was a misunderstanding. Sophia backed up every email and letter. We bought a couple motion cameras and a tiny mic that clipped under my shirt. Frank looked me in the eye and said, "If you're going to push them with proof. Don't do anything out there. You can't play back later." So we made a plan. I would build that fence one more time, not halfway. The whole run in broad daylight on a weekend, when Brenda could not claim she did not know. And this time, everything would be recorded. The morning we chose felt heavy. Before the sun was even up, my hands shook a little as I loaded the posts. But underneath the nerves, there was this calm. Like whatever happened, we were done. Being scared of our own mailbox. Sophia set the cameras and watched from her laptop, with the sheriff's number pulled up. I clipped the mic on, took a breath, and walked out to the line. I started driving posts into that stubborn ground my dad cursed and loved. Each swing felt like a small promise. I'm not backing up on this time. It did not take long. First, the HOA golf cart rolled by on the trail with Brenda in it. Then, a Horizon pickup eased to the curb. Then, a truck hauling a backhoe turned into the side street and crawled along my fence like it was lost. Brenda marched down into my yard with her clipboard, the same fake inspector behind her, the backhoe idling bucket hovering. "Mark," she called. "We issued a stop work order. You're trespassing on Maple Hollow property, and this is your final warning." I set the post driver down and met her halfway. "Staying on my side of the line, show me a court order with a judge's signature and my address on it." I said, not your newsletter. An actual order. She waved an HOA form. This is a board-approved emergency removal authorization. We do not need a judge to protect community assets. The fake inspector lifted his clipboard for drainage regulations. We are authorized to remove this structure immediately. If you interfere, we can have you arrested. What department are you with? I asked. What's your badge number? Who is your supervisor? He ignored it. You're being non-compliant, sir. That is all that matters. Brenda turned toward the backhoe and shouted, Take it down if he gets in the way. Call the sheriff and tell them he assaulted you. I stepped in front of that machine and planted my feet. Hands up. Heart pounding so loud I could hear it. You're not touching this fence, I said. Not today, the driver looked at me, then at Brenda. The engine idled for a second. The whole cul-de-sac felt like it was holding its breath. Then another voice cut through the noise from behind my shed. Shut that engine off. Right now, I turned and saw Frank walking toward us, except this was not the shuffling retiree. I thought I knew his shoulders were squared, his voice carried, and he was holding a leather wallet. He flipped open as he walked. My name is Franklin Darden, he said. I'm with the State Attorney General's office, Special Investigations Ms. Collins Spitter Morales. Step away from that equipment. For a beat, Brenda actually laughed. Oh, please, you expect us to believe. And he did not raise his voice at all. We have been investigating Horizon Property Group in Maple Hollow Reserve for 18 months. He said we have recordings of you threatening to seize property without due process, forging easement documents, impersonating county officials, and coercing owners into signing away their land. This is over, right? Then 2 sheriff's SUVs turned into the cul-de-sac. Deputies stepped out. Another pair of plainclothes agents came through my side gate with real badges that actually matched the state website. Sophia opened the back door and watched from the porch. One agent took a folder from Brenda, pulled out that easement with my dad's signature. This is the agreement you claimed Lawson's father signed, he asked. She stammered. That's what Horizon gave us. We were told it was valid. Sophia came down the steps, holding my dad's will and mortgage. These are his real signatures. She said they do not match, and you were told that Frank hit a button on a little recorder, and suddenly the whole yard was listening to Brenda's own voice from a week earlier. If you do not sign that easement, we will lien your house, and you will lose everything. Then that smooth compliance division voice. Your father eventually cooperated. We expect the same from you. Then my own, so you're threatening to take my house, and his answer. People who fight the process tend to regret it. Hearing it all play back with deputies standing there felt like I had wandered into my own true crime episode. The fake inspector tried to slide his badge into his pocket. A deputy caught his wrist, turned it over, and snorted. This is from a costume shop impersonating an officer. Is a felony. Just so you know. Brenda's last bit of calm snapped. We were protecting the community, she said. Backstrip is worth millions. In future development. Silvergate has plans. You people do not understand how much value you are blocking. Frank shook his head. You thought the letters HOA turned extortion into governance, he said. Turns out the law still applies on this side of the fence, too. The deputy turned her around and cuffed her. The sound of metal closing around her wrists was more satisfying than any apology would have been. They walked her across my grass, past the posts she had tried so hard to erase, and put her in the back of a sheriff's car, like any other person who thought rules were for everyone else. When the dust settled, one of the agents handed me a single sheet with a state seal on it. For your records, Mr. Lawson, he said. This confirms that as far as the state is concerned, this here strip is part of your parcel. Any future disputes go through a judge, not a board. I did not cheer. I just walked back to the nearest post, put my hand on the wood, and felt something inside finally let go. My dad told me never to let anyone push this line. I said quietly. Took me long enough to listen. Frank smiled and said, "Sometimes the only way to catch a bully is to let them think they're winning, right up until the cuffs go on." So that is my story, or at least the part that fits in one telling. There were hearings and headlines, and more paperwork after that. But the thing that stays with me is that morning in my backyard, where a woman with a title and a man with a fake badge honestly believed they were the law until the real law pulled up. And it makes me wonder how many people just sign whatever is put in front of them, because an HOA logo looks official. How many folks give up a little strip of yard, a tree, a right, because they are afraid of letters and fines and being the difficult neighbor, and how far these neighborhood governments should be allowed to go before we all say, "Oh, that is enough." I'm curious what you think so. Tell me in the comments. If you believe I went too far or not far enough. Tell me if your HOA has been a blessing or a nightmare, and if you have ever had to stand in front of something that was yours and tell a very confident stranger, "No, you do not get to cross this line today."